The pulse of the social contract. Imagine you were born free, only to find yourself surrounded by invisible threads, laws, customs, and expectations shaping your every step. Rousseau asks, if we are born free, why do we live as if in chains? His answer is poetic and radical. Freedom lives only when it is shared. True freedom is not in escaping society, but in building one worthy of belonging to. Each individual gives a part of themselves to protect the whole, and in that giving, gains more than they lose. When people unite under a common will, they become something greater, the general will, the pulse of justice. It is not the will of personal interest, but the will of shared life. A society without mutual trust is like a body without a heart. Laws lose meaning, and freedom turns into chaos. Rousseau saw equality not as sameness, but as justice, a silent certainty that no one stands above the law. The social contract is not written on paper, but in how we treat one another, in the respect that turns strangers into citizens. Power, Rousseau warned, must never rest in one hand, for whoever surrenders their freedom to a ruler loses both liberty and dignity. But when power is divided, a society learns to breathe together. Obedience to a law you helped create is not submission. It is self-respect. The strength of a community lies in its unseen bonds of responsibility. Every right is tied to a duty, every freedom to awareness. To live freely is to know when to yield. Harmony is not weakness, but wisdom. Justice is not punishment for wrong, but care for what is right. It grows when citizens act for the common good, not for themselves alone. Every act of empathy strengthens the contract. Every act of selfishness tears it apart. When people forget their role, shadows rise in the shape of rulers. But when citizens awaken, thrones tremble. The general will is not the will of all, but the deep note that preserves everyone's freedom together. The worst kind of slavery is to think you are free while obeying without awareness. True freedom is conscious participation. In Rousseau's world, the greatest revolutions are not fought with weapons but with minds, a return to dignity, equality, and shared purpose. Society, then, is a living agreement, fragile yet strong, simple yet eternal. And its beauty? It depends on each of us, on our honesty, compassion, and courage to protect the thread that binds us. But Rousseau did not speak of freedom as a dream, but as a burden carried by awareness. Freedom without consciousness becomes a weight, and the individual who demands everything for themselves loses the meaning of belonging. To be free is not to do whatever you wish, but to understand what you do and its impact on others. For Rousseau, society is not a cage for human nature, but a way to rediscover it. In every just law echoes the innocence of our first nature, simplicity, mercy, and the desire for fairness. But when man forgets his nature, alienation is born, and life among others becomes a loud kind of loneliness. True laws are not imposed by force, but born from persuasion, from dialogue that turns disagreement into understanding. When people govern themselves with conscious will, law becomes a mirror of conscience, not a raised sword. A just society needs not constant surveillance, but constant awareness. What binds people is not fear of punishment, but mutual respect for human worth. Every society begins with agreement, but survives only by trust. Trust is the air the social contract breathes, unseen, yet when lost, everyone suffocates. At the core of Rousseau's thought lies a simple truth. Man is good by nature, but it is a corrupt society that corrupts him. Thus, the cure is not in new laws, but in awakening the collective conscience buried beneath self-interest. To be a citizen, for Rousseau, is to be a partner in justice, not a spectator of it. It means asking yourself each day, does what I do strengthen the thread that connects me to others, or does it cut it? When that question fades, the contract collapses, not with noise, but with silence, the silence of indifference. Society dies not only from injustice, but from apathy toward it. Freedom, as Rousseau said, is not granted by anyone, it is built from within, from the awakening of shared conscience. The deeper the awareness, the deeper the freedom, never chaos. Yet Rousseau, at his core, was not dreaming of a perfect society, but warning of the danger of losing ourselves. When laws become idols, when order is worshipped more than humanity, freedom begins to wilt. Law must serve conscience, not rule over it. A society that punishes more than it heals plants fear instead of justice. But the one that listens before judging protects its humanity from decay. Rousseau saw education as the seed of the social contract. Freedom is not inherited, it is taught. The child who learns to ask why before obeying is the citizen who will one day protect society from tyranny. No awakening without education, no education without honest doubt, not blind obedience. Thus, Rousseau's goal was never a flawless system, but the preservation of inner resistance. The courage to say no when silence becomes betrayal. The general will is not born from uniformity, but from the noble clash of sincere voices. It is a melody composed by honest disagreements, not identical echoes. In the end, the social contract is more than a political pact. It is a moral promise among humans. To protect one another when one of us falters. To raise the voice of reason when arrogance reigns. And to remember that freedom is preserved not by force, but by shared awareness. So when someone asks, what does it mean to be free? Answer as if you heard Rousseau's echo within. To take part in shaping the world, not to flee from it. To be part of the pulse that makes us human before it makes us citizens. And thus, Rousseau reminds us, freedom is not a gift from heaven nor from rulers, but a responsibility born of awareness and nourished by participation. The social contract is not an idea, it is a life lived daily, in honesty, in justice, and in the courage to question. We do not protect society with words, but with conscience that does not compromise. And when people breathe through the freedom of awareness, the contract is no longer a line in a book, but a heartbeat within every soul. The pulse of freedom, the pulse of humanity, the pulse of the social contract.